But now what David Alt proposed, and this is to me is a very interesting idea, he suggested that around 16 million years ago, there was a hole punched into crust. Right here. Of course, this area here, 16 million years ago, was back here. You got a picture. Okay, and what he suggested it would be a small, very dense, fast-moving metallic asteroid that comes in more or less perpendicular to the surface of the Earth, and probably a head-on collision. Because now you know if the Earth is moving through space at 18.5 miles per second, which is 66,600 miles per hour, and it meets an object that's also going that fast but in the opposite direction, you've got a head-on collision. If Earth gets pummeled by something coming from behind it, it doesn't have nearly the kinetic energy of impact as a head-on collision. What David Alt proposed was that perhaps there was a head-on collision between Earth and a small, dense asteroid, which, run the physics on it, is capable of punching a very deep hole right through the crust into the mantle. And he proposed that as the origin of this hot spot. In fact, I'm of the mind that this could turn out to be maybe the most likely explanation for most of the localized global hotspots. Maybe indications of where, it'd be like the difference between if somebody shoots you at point blank range straight on, or you get shot and you get a grazing wound off the side of you. This is one where, like, you know, and then of course the cosmic animals that the Earth could encounter, there's a variety of those, you know, from low density comets to middle density stony asteroids to high density heavy iron asteroids. So if you had a small, like 1 or 2 mile in diameter iron asteroid meeting the Earth in a head-on collision, it could puncture a hole 30 or 40 miles deep into the crust and then spend the next 10 or 20 million years healing. And that could very well be what happened right here. And then what you would be looking at here is this would have been the scar of the impact right here. And of course, there you don't have the preservation of a crater because the object has punched through the crust, and now you have this upwelling of all of the basalt, which is going to obscure the crater, which, you know, so you don't see a big bowl-shaped crater or even a multi-ring crater like you normally would. Instead, you get an area of jumbled, broken, fissured rock that has all of these deep-seated magmas coming up and pouring out through it. Exactly what you have here. And you'll notice this is kind of, it fits because you look at the scars when, you know, almost circular. But there's no proof yet. That's just purely hypothetical. But it makes sense.
And he said this, what, in the 80s?
Oh, no, let's see. He wrote a book, probably in the early 90s.
Early mid-90s.
So he's a recent guy.
Yeah, he's a recent guy. He's still alive, still, you know, still clicking, yeah. Okay,
Are you
so
almost up to where the
yes,
Starburst.
the Nechako Plateau. Maybe, I don't know if I'm saying it exactly right, but it's spelled Nechako. Yeah, and that's the area. That's exactly the area.
And what is in that area? Is it up in the mountains and nobody lives there, or is it just?
Well, it's a desolate area for sure.
Okay.
But that's the region right here. I showed this to you last week. So next summer, what I would like to do is follow right up here, which would have been the ice-free corridor between the Cordilleran ice sheet and the Laurentide ice sheet, the zone which it's speculated by archaeologists that at least one wave of early, 12 to 15,000 year ago colonists might have passed through that ice-free corridor. But the timing of it is very interesting because but see, the ice-free corridor also acted as a trough that channeled huge amounts of meltwater. And as you come off, let's see, I think Jasper Park would be right in here. And you had rivers that came out here. The rivers coming out of the mountains diverge and do this. You have rivers like the Peace River that flow east up into Hudson Bay, and then you have other rivers that flow down this way and become part of the Missouri watershed. But from Jasper Park down to the Montana border is what's called the Athabasca Erratics Train. And that is a very curious geological feature. And definitely related to the great catastrophic flood. Well, this is what I showed, to refresh your memory, Elizabeth, this is what I showed last time.
To refresh my memory.
Yeah.
Oh.
It has water spreading out that you don't see anywhere
Yeah,
else.
those, there I'm showing the flow paths, all of
That has more than two.
the water flow directions off of this central area. And I'm showing the flow directions through all of these valleys. And this is the thing that I can't understand, why these geologists that talk about the Missoula flood don't look at this. Because every one of these valleys empties to the south, and they were all filled with ice that has melted away. And where would it have gone? Right over the basalt plateau. There was no other place for it to go.
And the basalt plateau was already there when
The basalt plateau was already there, yes. Because the basalt plateau, remember, started forming, most of that basalt was extruded between 16 million years ago and 10 million years ago, with residual flows up till, I think they say that if pretty much the last one was dated around 6 million, and it wasn't nearly as big as the early ones. So most of those lava flows that you would have seen there in the channel scablands exposed by the mega floods were between 10 and 16 million years ago. So then the objective of this expedition next summer would be to traverse this area here, up along here, perhaps making incursions inland. This is the Rocky Mountain Trench, and then work our way up to that, and hopefully find some evidence up there to confirm or refute the hypothesis that that was a zone of
How
impact.
do you plan to confirm?
Oh, well, perhaps look for meteoritic material, get samples that we could bring back that could perhaps be analyzed later for magnetic grains or microspherules, looking for exposed cuts that might reveal layers of charcoal.
You're not going to do any drilling.
I don't have the, no, probably not.
Brad is
Unless-
a couple people.
Unless you want to put up some money and fund a drilling expedition,
I just went to the Deep Rock Drilling Company in Opelika, and they make drilling equipment you can carry in a back pickup.
Oh, really?
But they also make huge rigs that drill the big deep oil wells.
You look
Right.
like a Geiger counter
But it's
for
an
a
interesting
radio.
company. They're covered up with work right now.
or
There's a
they,
whole bunch of pieces like the Willamette meteorite. You just need a big metal detector and run it over the whole.
yeah.
Would you help?
This is a scene of the
Meteorites.
Snake River Plain, Elizabeth, that you were asking about.
so it's farmland.
A lot of it's farmland, and what you see here is the aftermath of the Great Bonneville flood. You see the little old Snake River, which is actually a pretty healthy big river. See how it flows in the ancient trough, the much bigger trough of the Bonneville flood?
And this is 80, the one that's 80 by 400 miles or something like that that you were talking about.
Well, you're still
earlier.
all within the
No, I was
plane.
talking about the English Channel. No, the plain. The plain itself is about, we're looking to the east, so this is like, that would be north, this would be south, and it's about 80 miles wide this way and 400 miles this way.
That's 80 miles.
But you're only
wow.
seeing. You're
Well,
only
yeah,
seeing
we're only seeing a little-
15, maybe.
Yeah, we're only seeing a little piece of it there.
Oh,
The San Juan Basin, which was the home of the lost Chacoan culture, and it was right here again, the San Juan Basin. And here is another digital relief map in black and white. Chaco, so you can see the basin is right there. Chaco Canyon is right at the tip of the arrow. You can see the Chaco Wash or Chaco River right there, runs through it.
What would make that such a sacred spot from in all of America in a sense, because it's kind of like a Native American Stonehenge in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, here's the Colorado Plateau again. And here is the Four Corners area, Grand Canyon, and The San Juan Basin is this right here. And that was the locus of the Chaco culture.
And aren't there oil fields in that area?
I
Big
think
time?
there is, yes.
Natural gas, oil, big
Yes,
time?
yes. And that's creating kind of a conflict of interest there.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Here's a closer up of it. This is the whole basin right here. There's the Chusca Mountains. And this is actually the San Juan River right here, which flows into the Colorado and then empties out. All of the rain that falls in the San Juan Basin ends up in the Colorado River and flows through the Grand Canyon. So this was the home. This was where they were centered. And Chaco Canyon is right, this is Chaco Canyon right here. If you can see that barely, but there's the Chaco River comes in. And so this was sort of like the center of the whole complex. But the whole entire complex covered 60,000 square miles.
60,000.
Yeah, there's Chaco Canyon. And here's a closer up map of the canyon itself. You can see it kind of extends from this low mountain range right here. And this was where the cultural complex was centered right there. Right in this area. There we go. Now, see, extending out of there they had this whole network of roadways, outliers, and signal towers. Roadways, outliers, and signal towers. This is Casa Rinconada, which is in the canyon. Yeah, this is in Chaco Canyon.
What's the age of it?
Probably 1,000 years old. About 1,000 years, yeah.
And are those
And
like,
this is where you're planning to go on the next trip?
On the next trip, yes.
And can you get into those, like, all these things you're showing? Or
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
locked up?
I've been in them. Yeah, I've been inside this Casa Rinconada. Let's see if we can find, let's see if Santa Fe shows up on here. Well, here's Albuquerque right there. So that's what I was saying right now. Plane flights into Albuquerque, or what were they?
300.
Like 320.
Yeah, something 320 or something. So then it would be from there, and then basically a driving trip from there to cover. And this is an astronomical instrument right here. And it would be good to watch that video again that we watched here a year and a half ago. Do you remember how many of you saw that? I had a video that was about the sun dagger and the astronomical alignments at Chaco Canyon.
right, yeah.
Yeah, there's Fajada Butte. Now that's right at the entrance into the canyon, and was where the sun dagger
Didn't they
is.
fix it?
What?
Didn't they fix it?
I don't know. Elizabeth just says they didn't.
No.
Yes,
What
no.
were the associated Native American tribes?
Well, Navajo and Hopi were the two,
Oh,
and the
so-
Zuni,
yeah.
but the Pueblo tribes. But they were basically later than the Chaco people. The Chaco people did their thing and were gone. So the Pueblos, the modern Pueblos, don't really know who they were. It's very similar to the Hopewell, the mound builders east of the Mississippi. They preceded the tribes that were there when the Europeans arrived.
Have any bones ever been?
All right, this is a ground view. This was Pueblo Bonito, wasn't it, Brad? Yeah, this is Pueblo Bonito from the ground.
Just nod your head.
These are some of the Anasazi or Chaco ruins in the canyon itself.
You have to bring the cedars in from a long, far away.
Yes, the timbers that were used had to be brought from very far away. Building this whole complex was an extremely ambitious undertaking.
Who's that person?
He was on the trip with us.
Oh,
I just you try to have a person in the picture for some scale.
yeah.
So that's,
Yeah, it's strange, but
yeah,
sometimes
that's
rocks.
Pueblo Bonito.
Yeah, no, I'll confirm that one.
Yeah. So this whole axial alignment forming this wall was the maximum moonrise and moon setting position. And see, look at all these round kivas. These were not residences, these were ceremonial. This was some type of a ceremonial or ritual instrument.
Could they have been storage?
No. Sorry.
Well, you know, something could have a sacred purpose and a practical purpose, Elizabeth.
Yeah,
See, this place, listen here, doesn't even have a name. It's just, but it's in Chaco Canyon.
They kept the potatoes in the refrigerator.
One of the more remarkable discoveries in the 1970s about the Chacoan culture concerned the Chacoan roadway system. Archaeologists have discovered nothing like it anywhere else in prehistoric North America. However, the guy who wrote this needs to consult with the archaeologists that have studied the Hopewellian and have been documenting the Great Hopewell Road up in Ohio, which is just what he's talking about here. This network of broad, straight, well-engineered roads is more than just an archaeological curiosity. The extent of the roads across vast segments of the San Juan Basin has vividly demonstrated that Chacoan culture was not confined to Chaco Canyon itself, but was spread over a large portion of what is now northwestern New Mexico. The effort and coordination that went into the building of these roads raises even more questions about the social organization of the society that built them. The Bureau of Land Management archaeologists examined much of the North Road in detail on the ground. This is a great roadway that leads out of Chaco Canyon. The Pierre's Rune area, about 12 miles north of Chaco Canyon, produced some interesting discoveries. These finds confirmed the North Road's connection to a remarkable set of structures in the vicinity of Pierre's Rune. In 1976, an archaeological survey crew from the Chaco Center in Albuquerque, led by Robert Powers, inventoried the site. They described 3 massive constructions built in the classical Bonito architectural style. 2 faced one another atop a lofty mesa. These structures are collectively called the Acropolis. Powers noted that every major elevation within a kilometer of the Acropolis supported at least one structure. Few sites were at the base of these Badland pinnacles, but one of them was very special. It was the third and most massive of the Bonito-style constructions. BLM archaeologist John Stein calls it a unique architectural feature in the eastern Anasazi world. This structure apparently incorporated a lofty Badlands pinnacle as a sort of tower. At the top of this natural tower, the Chacoans had built a masonry platform, or possibly a housed kiva. This masonry structure is now entirely collapsed into rubble, but remaining atop the spire is a hearth. Many large fires have been built on it. Visibility from it in all directions is excellent, and it so happened that this spire and its hearth aligned with the center line of the North Road. The BLM archaeologists have named the Badland Cone and its apparent signal tower El Faro, the lighthouse. So you've got to picture this now. As you're leaving Chaco Canyon, for whatever reason, you're on a pilgrimage or whatever the purpose is, it's a trade expedition or who knows, but you're traveling this dead straight roadway north, the Great North Road. And as you're traveling, it points directly to this spire, to this pinnacle that had a tower on it, that had a hearth in it where they were building large fires. So now if you're traveling at night, you see that tower and you know that the roadway is leading you dead on to that tower. Now the more interesting part of it is that, well, there's a couple of more interesting parts. That was part of a complex of what could have been hundreds of signal towers that covered the entire San Juan Basin, and that would have been visible. I have a lot more material I have to put together into my program on this, but essentially the idea was this. There were prominences On top of these prominences, they would build the signal towers. The prominences were connected by this network of large, perfectly straight roadways and linked by ceremonial centers. Now, on the prominences, they built the towers. They had hearths for the building of huge bonfires, so that if somebody at the rim of Chaco Canyon, in one of the signal towers there, lit a fire, it could be seen from other signal towers in all directions up to 20 miles away. And it could be seen instantly, so that somebody would then turn around and create a second bonfire in a signal tower 20 miles north and 20 miles south of Chaco Canyon that could be seen within a matter of minutes by somebody else another 20 miles further north. So what would happen is that within a matter of minutes, they could send messages by means of these signal towers over the entire 60,000 square miles of the San Juan Basin.
And where did they get all the wood? There's no trees.
There's no trees. That's right, and that's what Jeremy was mentioning, is that was another part of the incredible amount of work that went into creating this system, was the importation of all of the trees that were necessary, because all of these buildings that we're looking at in these kivas that are open to the sky, most of them were roofed over with timbers, involving the importation of tens of thousands of timbers. And the timbers are still being found. I mean, some of them were 2 and 3 feet in diameter. And they would typically do the usual, which Pueblo Indians still do, which is set out the posts to mark the 4 cardinal directions. Don, you were going to...
Yeah, well, when you first mentioned the signal towers, it just flashed in that they could send messages by either using a blanket or something to block and
Yes.
open up the...
And during the daytime, any kind of a reflective surface could be used to signal.
Right.
Smoke signals.
Smoke, yeah.
And what about maybe there was a big forest there and they just cut it all down?
They didn't
No, I don't think. Well, there was a forest there, but this was more of a grasslands. I think there were forests there during the Ice Age, but 1,000 years ago there was not forests. In fact, it was not that dissimilar from what it is now. So they know they've identified where the trees came from.
And
In
where-
fact, a lot of those trees came from the Chusca Mountains
How far is that?
and other places. Well, anywhere from up to 100 to 200 miles away. So you had to haul logs that were 2 and 3 feet thick and 50 and 60 feet long.
Down mountain.
Tens of thousands of those over hundreds of miles.
They must have had big trucks.
They must have. But here are just some of the scenes of some of their centers, and this would all be on the itinerary.
Well, could they have floated the logs down the river?
No.
No.
Well, some rivers, yes, but in order to distribute the logs
Carrying.
they had to be carried, or perhaps the roadways were used for hauling the logs. Because these roadways, some of them were up to over 30 feet in width, which has
Wow.
puzzled archaeologists, because they're saying, well, for all we know, it was all just footpaths. They don't even think they had wheeled carts. So they're going, why in the world would they build roadways 30 feet in width? And we're talking dead straight roadways that go for dozens and dozens of miles across the basin in all directions.
So they can build a roadway, but they don't know what a wheel is. It's kind of illogical.
Canyon of the Ancients is one of the outlying on the rim country of the basin. You can see this can give you an idea of what the rim country looks like.
Looks dry.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
there's the structure. Maybe it was a dwelling. I don't know.
And do you know where they have the cliffs? The one that's in the cliff, is that
That's
there?
Mesa Verde. Yes,
Oh,
that's
that's
the northern rim of the basin.
Okay.
And this is Chimney Rock, which was set out for precise astronomical alignments, rising and settings of the moon. I mean,
That's a great photo. Did you
Yeah.
do that?
so this is on the itinerary. This is some of the ruins that are on top of this mountain that this is on. In fact, the ruins, this picture is taken from these ruins right here.
Did they have any thing for mortar, or was it just stones piled?
Mostly it was interlocked stones, but yeah, I think they used mortar in some of the cases. Didn't they use mortar? Do you remember,
I'm
Brian?
trying to remember. I think it was just stone.
No more than
Maybe that's what they're
Flat
calling the
stones.
Benito style. This interlaced stonework, really high quality, good masonry work. Hoven weep.
You know what that looks like?
The-
Is
What?
the Machu Picchu when they put the stone, much bigger stones,
Mhm.
but they're so
Yeah.
cut so well that they perfectly fit to all the ones surrounding one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. This would be what would be considered an outlier. This is an outlier, meaning it's part of this complex that's sort of connected to the Chaco Canyon is sort of the hub of the whole thing. And then you have all of these outliers that are connected by this roadway system and linked by these signal
Is the
towers.
roadway stone or
Yeah.
hard clay or
It's hard packed,
stone?
yeah, stone. And it's got raised rims on both sides.
And does it look like they drug the logs over the stone?
I have not seen anything getting that explicit about it. The comments I've seen was that, geez, however they did it, it was a lot of work. Getting those logs from the forested mountains down to the area of the canyon.
well, 30 feet wide. I guess they could roll them.
How high are the things on the side? And maybe they ran water down and floated them down the.
No, because they go over hilltops. They're dead straight, regardless of, like now we
But
build
they're not.
roads to follow the contour
Yeah.
lines. But
This goes up and down.
up and down, yeah.
Huh.
If the roadways were the first jolting stimulus causing archaeologists to expand their view of Chacoan culture to the entire San Juan Basin, the outliers were the second. Although there was no comparable instrumental advance, it was like the surge of astronomical discovery that accompanies first use of any new observing device, such as a space telescope. In this case, the more the archaeologists looked, the more outlying communities they found. Chacoan outliers seemed nearly everywhere. Something important was going on here. And this would have been one of the extreme outliers, Wupatki.
Is that what the road looks like on the left?
No, in fact, from the ground, the roads are almost invisible now. And how in fact, one of the big assets to the modern study of these roads is aerial photography. Because you can see them, and particularly at really low sun angles, they'll show up from above. But from the ground, once they know they're there, they can go down on the ground and see them. But they're almost invisible at this point, from just somebody standing on the ground looking casually. Now, the interesting thing about this, and this is where I want to go with my research into this particular ruins sits at the confluence of two major fault lines. And I believe that there might be something going on there as far as the integration of astronomy and geology. I don't have a picture of it in here, and when I dig up one, there's a blowhole here, which is just a hole that just goes who knows how deep, and it's basically blowing cold air out.
And this is in one of these.
Cold air, yeah. It's like an air conditioning vent.
This is in one of these outlook or buildings.
Outliers. No, it's actually just sitting out in a sort of almost looks like a shallow kiva. It's a round area depressed with a circular wall around it, and out in the middle of it is this blowhole.
Man-made blowhole.
No, it's natural.
Natural.
Well,
And this-
sometimes it goes the other way. It's breathing.
Right. Sometimes it
it's
sucks in. Right.
inhaling, yeah.
Exactly. I forgot.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes it sucks in, and sometimes it blows out.
How big around
It's
it?
always cold when it comes out. It's not hot.
I think. Well, it was cold when we were there, wasn't it?
I think it's cool there.
I think it comes out cold. Yeah, but
Air
it's
conditioner for the inner people.
Well-
That's what I say. That's our entrance to the cave.
Nobody climbed down it?
well. See, it's probably just about big enough to lower you down in there, Elizabeth.
Maybe Elizabeth.
When you're cave exploring, if there's the least movement of air, you know that it's open at the far end. You get
Right.
these tunnels, and they keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller. But if you hold a light and it just flickers, you know you're going to be able to get through.
I get claustrophobic just thinking about that.
I've been in a cave for 3 days, many times.
We got all kinds of volcanic
Jeez.
underground tubes just south of there.
Right. So this is this is Wupati. This is north of Flagstaff. So this is like the extreme reaches of the Chacoan culture right here. And I think that's all I've put together. I have a lot more
Where's
to put in here, but I haven't had time yet to.
Where's Sedona in relation to that there?
Sedona is well, there we were.
Probably 80 or 90 miles south. Southwest a little bit.
Let's see, let me find one here. Okay, let's read this one. Okay, the area we were just looking at was in the San Juan Basin, which is this area, and Sedona is right here. See, Sedona is right on the edge of the Colorado Plateau.
And where would Flagstaff be in there?
Flagstaff, here's the San Francisco Mountains, which are just north of Flagstaff. So Flagstaff is like right where that black dot is at the end of my finger. And then about 30 miles or 40 miles south of Flagstaff, right on the rim here, is where Sedona is.
Does Sedona have any of these ancient structures or any kind of?
I don't know.
'Cause that's a pretty
Have you been to
magical
Sedona?
place. Yeah,
I don't
it's
think
pretty
so.
Magical.
Isn't
It's really
Sedona?
got-
Yeah, it's lovely
it's
there.
got some
Beautiful.
energy that's.
You been there, Don?
amazing.
Yeah, and I've
Yeah.
been to Flagstaff.
Yeah, I
spent
really love.
two
Well,
days.
Wupati that I just showed you is just north up here. You go up here, like when you're going from Flagstaff up to Grand Canyon, Wupati ruins are right in here. So they're actually completely outside the San Juan Basin. But I think what links it to that culture is the style of masonry work. It looks like the same style. But yeah, if you've gotten anything out of this, what I'm trying to convey here is the idea that there was this whole cultural phenomena going on out here hundreds of years before the Europeans arrived. And it has all the earmarks of a lot of these other ancient cultural things we've been looking at. It certainly seems to have parallels with the Hopewellian and Mississippian cultures, in the eastern part of North America that built the mound structures. And that's one of the things I want to get into. Two of the things that possibly link that are the straight roadway system. See, the problem is finding that roadway system in Ohio and Kentucky and Indiana and places like this is because, out here is in the desert and it's preserved, but if you had forests and trees and everything growing over this, you wouldn't see them at all. So it's very likely that there was a lot more of these straight roadway systems linking, because just like here, the straight roadway systems link these various communities and the outliers with the central complex. It appears like Newark was a central complex, and there were straight roadways emanating out from it that linked the other big mound centers.
Ohio.
Newark, Ohio, yeah. So, and it was going on at the same time. So I'm thinking that, you probably had parallel cultural phenomena, or you had somebody instigating some kind of a system, and maybe it was the same people.
Could it not have been they were reconstructing an earlier system?
Sure. Yeah, in fact, I think that might be exactly what it is, reconstructing an earlier system.
You know, also on this one, did the measurements use the same system like the 108 stuff?
I haven't gotten that far into my studies yet.
Because if it's completely different, this would be a new point of departure.
Yeah. What if it turned out to be the same measurement systems?
Well, that'd be good.
Yeah, that would be interesting too. So,
What happened to that culture?
what happened to what?
They left.
Culture.
To that culture.
Well, the interesting thing there is part of what I'm going to do as I continue to work on this and put in new material is some of the archaeologists' quotes, where they're describing what appears to be residences, and it almost as if the entire San Juan Basin was just abandoned suddenly and simultaneously. Even to the point of where they go in and they say it looked like people got up and left in the middle of dinner and never came back.
When?
I guess like 1,000 years ago.
That would have been in the warming period.
Perhaps, yeah. But see, even though the global average might have been warming, the regional areas may have diverged from that. But probably, it could have been. It could have been. I think they're still trying to sort out what was actually happening with the climate in this region during that period. And I haven't gotten that far into my studies yet myself to really know. But part of what I would like to study when I go out there is the evidence for climate change. Because if there's a rainy period, it's going to leave an imprint in the landscape that's going to be recognizable to somebody who knows how to read it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there is most certainly evidence that there was gigantic floods of 10 to 12 to 13,000 years ago. In fact, one of the things that we looked at when we were out there a couple of years ago, or 3 years ago, was going through what's called White Rock Canyon along the Rio Grande, and it shows evidence of a major. Yeah, it shows an evidence of. Let's see here, right out of this area. Yeah, right here. This whole area. This is the Sangre de Cristo Mountains here. In this whole valley, I've forgotten the name of
Is it
it.
San Luis?
San Luis?
Yeah. Is that it?
Maybe.
I think it probably is.
Yeah. So there was a catastrophic flood. This was a temporary large body of water that drained catastrophically out this way and down the Rio Grande. And we went through one of the areas called White Rock Canyon, and where you could see cataracts along the side of the canyon that were like 400 and 500 feet above the canyon floor. So, you know, there's lots of evidence out here in the Southwest of catastrophic flooding occurring at the end of the last ice age, or perhaps an ice age earlier than that.
Is that in Colorado at the top? of it?
This is Colorado right here.
I think that's-
Denver
I think it
is, oh, where is Denver? Denver's up in here.
Right, yeah, you're close.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, I can't read that. So you're thinking it's called the San Luis Basin?
I think, but I'm not sure.
Well, it was a temporary lake basin that filled with water and flowed catastrophically right down through the... In fact, the Rio Grande probably follows the channel cut by that catastrophic flood out of that basin.
It's the most eastern basin in Colorado, and I think that would be the most eastern basin in Colorado.
It's got its interesting country out there.